Okay, so there is the blanking plate in position. I ended up not zinc plating those bolts. I just blackened them instead with a rust converter, and it's not going to show, so I wasn't too worried about it. But that's the blanking plate there for those left-hand drive boys. Now let's go to the other side and start getting the handbrake mechanism in. Yo-ho-ho-ho, here we go again. This is my handbrake switch, and just before I put it in, I thought I'd give it a quick test. It doesn't work. Oh shit, alright, so I'll take it apart and see if I can fix it. Initially this plunger was stuck, but with a little bit of heat I got it to move, but I still could not get a reading through the switch. Alright, I'll take it apart and fix it. Hang on a minute, I think I've got one. And I do. This is NOS 31504. Not sure what the 368 means underneath, but anyway, a genuine Lucas NOS part, and I obtained this many years ago when I was working at a British car place, and the guy in the spares department knew that I was into Mark IIs, and he knew this was for a Mark II, and said, "Here Gary, you can have this, you know, we're never going to use it." So, oh, great, thanks very much, and took it. Anyway, turns out that this is the switch, and it's even correct, and by that what I'm saying is this one, as you see, has spade connectors. The wiring harness has bullet connectors, so like crap, I'm going to have to change the ends. Well, the NOS one, made by a dear friend Lucas, is bullet connectors. Yeah, look, bullet connectors. So that's great. That's going to save me a whole shitload of trouble. So I've now got this set, and this is ready to go in. I've just got to get a couple of screws, and let me move you a bit. A couple of screws to hold this down in here, and it goes in there thusly. In fact, let me put a light on just so make sure you guys can see. So that's where it mounts, and I've cleaned up down there the metal, and I've cleaned up the base of this so we get a good contact, and the reason for that is I've got to put this ground wire onto it, so that will slip in underneath there and be attached. And then the two wires, of course, will go in there and in there, and that forms the circuit. I will I've got a sleeve I'm going to put over this wire, and then I'll take it down and glue it to the bottom of the the floor. In fact, I don't know if I can bring it round that way. I don't know if there's enough room. There probably isn't, so I think the safest bet will be to take it under here and then bring the connections up to the switch. Yeah, that's what I'll do. But next I've got to go and get the two screws that fit this, and this is annoying because this has to come up a little bit so that it can then rest on top of that. That just happens to be the way it goes. Also got to, hang on a second, sorry, I put a bolt in here just to hold it still while I was fucking around. There's a nut and a bolt there. Hang on. Right, we have a nut and a bolt through there, and here is a threaded bolt, which is this bolt here. I will put a lock washer on that, spring washer, whatever you want to call it. Then the next thing will be to cover this. I'm going to cover these all in goop because that will help it get a better seal. But first I want to get the positioning correct. So I go, okay, that's it, and that means I need to push it on that far. And that's, yeah, ballpark. Okay, so that's a ballpark position for it. For me to now pull this out, cover this in the goop, and then push it through. Biggest question I have in my mind is, do I do that? No, I have to do this first. This switch has to go in first. And what I do need to do is get the 2 screws for that. I think it's 2BA. Or not 2BA. Ha 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 ha. So let me go and get a couple of screws and let's start putting this thing together. Oops, sorry about that. Bashed you. As you can see, I've put a protective sleeve over this, and I'll glue this in here, but not until I've got the handbrake mechanism in. The order of things, just to help you, leave the switch out, put the bracket in, fix the bracket down, then put the connections into the switch, and then put the switch into the bracket. That is the way I found works. Hopefully you will find the same. Now let's get on and get this whole mechanism in. But prior to that, I want to get my goopy, my goop, and I'm going to smear it all around those O-rings that are there. And it'd be helpful if my light didn't turn off, or I didn't turn it off. So I'm going to smear that all around there. I'm going to smear some there, and hopefully that will A, give me a good seal, and B, make it look pretty. Let's get it done, and then I'll show you the finished result. Okay, Hatoki, here she is. She's in. And here too, I do need to make an addendum to what I said earlier. The last thing in has got to be the switch. Let me see if I can show you why. Because of that bolt down there. That is the biggest pain in the ass to get to. Yeah. Now I've got it. It wasn't very easy. And to be honest, I don't know if the thread crossed. I don't think it did, but it was a tight bugger getting it in there, and I couldn't have done it with the switch in. So that's the thing to do. I guess the sequence of events is put all this in and put this bracket in. And the reason I put this bracket in first is because this part rests on top of the bracket. Now, maybe I could have modified the bracket. It's hard to tell. It is such a close fit in there. I mean, Mr. William Lyons and his tolerances, well, in this case, they were very close. All right, and okay, so as you can see, the bracket is on here. The bolt is through. You press button, release, and it comes down on top. Fortunately, this is slightly springy, so yeah, I could probably adjust this up a bit by making the hole bigger, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to worry about it. It's going to work fine. Look at that. Now, the only other thing to do, so this is the brake on full, and hell, I hope I'm never in that position. So I'm going to take the brake off now and go underneath, and when I'm underneath, I will put on the bracket that pulls the cable. Now, it pulls the cable, so you've got to make sure you've got plenty of leeway and play. So let's get under there and have a look at that. All right, here we are on the underside of the car, or underneath. Now we need to put this on. Now we could put it on that way round. I don't think it'll make a great deal of difference, but you've got to be careful that that nut doesn't hit there. So what I'm going to do is put it on here. Now, as you can see, I've angled it back. That could be wrong. You know, I may need to adjust that, change that once I get all the brake cables and the handbrake mechanism in. That's going to be a long way down the road because I'm still determined to take out the rear differential and rebuild that. But I really would like to finish most of the wiring first. I haven't got far to go on that, but there's all the dash ones and I want to kind of see how I can sort them out. So this is what I'm going to do for the moment. I'm just going to put it on there. I'm going to grab my trusty 1/2 inch and crank it up. Now, it must be noted that prior to me putting this on here, I did open up the gap where this bolt goes through. In other words, I put a screwdriver in there and pried it open. It just makes life easier. Now, I'm going to run out of room here, I think. We'll see. Yeah, just a little bit. That's okay. That just means I can't use me ring. Right. And you do have to think about this. You know, if you put it on that way, when you pull the lever up in there, you're going to be pulling it up, so that's going to bring this way, so you're not going to get the play you need. It can't go up the other way, you know. The cable comes along here. Okay? All right, now, hang on, let me just pinch this up a little more. I'll make sure I got it good and tight. Yeah. Now, I ain't going to be able to move that, but I've got to make sure I can move it inside the car. So let's go check that first. Okay, the final test. Everything's in position. Are we ready? Let's see if we can pull it up. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. And hear that click. Note, I didn't go da 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 da. Push it in, push it down. Do the same when you're bringing it up. And I will do this one time and one time only for you. Don't ever do this. That is not the way to put on a handbrake. That destroys the ratchet. Yeah, it takes time, but it destroys it. Push the button in and pull. Done. Maybe one last click. Oh, I'm already there. Okay. That's going to be the end of this one, guys. I mean, I've got my... Excuse me, let me spin you around. My little magnets holding this all in place while it sets, and my little clamp. And then I will glue that and get that up against the... I will glue that and get that up against the sill. And we're good to go. We sure are. All right, you know they got your drill. Get out the garage, go do some shit. One other thing while I'm under here, sorry, you see this bracket. This is to mount my Tremec 5-speed gearbox. This is for an automatic. I have a proper car, so mine has the manual transmission. The people that were helping me have decided they can't be bothered anymore, which is really disappointing. Oh, you can use the automatic one. Well, now it means I've got to drill the floor of my car and get some nuts and bolts and plates and shit and do some adaptation. Now, as you can see by looking at it, that bracket is off center, which means the center of the transmission, well, actually the center of the transmission is still the center. It's still roughly where my hand is, but the center of this bracket is over here, another, let's say an inch or so to the left as we look at it. And that means that I'm very close to the edge up here in both, and too far over there. Now, I could cut this off here and move the plate and re-weld it. That's a lot of work, but if that's what I got to do, that's what I will do. However, what I'm first going to try, and you can see the yellow around there, I've stuck my yellow marker pen up through there. And by the way, you should get yourself a couple of these things, Mighty markers. They're paint markers. They're very good for doing timing and shit like that. And you know, when you're taking off a prop shaft or whatever, you can use that to mark it. They're very handy pens. The original gearbox mount would be here, as you can see. Yeah, and I lost one of mine. One of the nuts decided not to be captive anymore. We made a run for it. And it would have been nice if they'd have made a bracket that was a piece of flat steel there that lined up here. But apparently they couldn't do that. It's too fucking difficult for them. And when they said they would work with me to do this, and mine would be the prototype, I was quite happy with that. But instead they fucked me and said, I just use the automatic one. Guess they didn't want to put the effort into it. I still may, I don't know yet, I still may make up something. I can make some measurements, get a piece of steel plate, and sort it out, basically, do it properly. But that would mean using these original mounts. And I must admit, that is kind of the way I'm going. But I want to see where these marks come out and how close they are to the edge before I make that leap, because I would have to, well, I was going to say I'd have to pay somebody. I probably wouldn't, but it means I've got to buy a big chunk of steel. I mean, I can do it. I know I can do it, and I can make it strong, and I can then powder coat it and make it look pretty. It's just annoying to have to do that. All right. So that's just a little aside. Well, folks, as you can see where these dots are, that one's, oh my God. That one's, yeah, okay. And that one's, yeah, okay. I think I'm going to have to make up my own mounting plate, which really sucks. I better start thinking about how I'm going to design this thing, and then how the hell I'm going to make it. Quarter plate, wow. How the hell am I going to cut through quarter plate? Maybe in some way I can utilize the original bracket, which does already mount there, and then I can put something that will come down to here. I'm going to have to give that some thought. I bet I can. Well, I won't say a piece of flat steel, but something, the original bracket here, and then something that comes down, straight piece of plate. Let me give that some thought. That's one for the future, that's for sure.